It's Thursday, August 14th, 2014. I'm Rem.
And I'm Emily.
And this is Geeknights. Tonight, The Daily Show. And last week tonight.
Let's do this.
I guess Scott is here only in spirit and in the bumper that I'm going to leave in.
Well, he was supposed to do a Wednesday show yesterday, and
Well, we had stuff to do.
Yeah, I
Stuff's
figured.
going on.
But we were going to do like a animation and comics show, but then I realized that we really haven't been reading a lot of the same comics, so I was like, maybe we'll just do a show about like how we like political shows, because Scott never wants to talk about politics, and he has like no interest in The Daily Show or all those other satire shows.
Yep, kind of like how I'm also thinking about Skyping maybe Andrew in, because we're tweet about Ukraine buddies and no one else seems to give a shit.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, stuff's been pretty rough. Like, every time I look at the news lately, I'm just kind of depressed, especially these past few days.
Yeah, well, I'll admit, and it's a little bit dark to think this, but as much as this is bad things are happening, aside from the fact that things are still pretty much better than they've been in most points in history for most people, it's a little exciting because it's all the sort of geopolitical weirdo crap that's really fun to analyze.
It's awful. It's awful. It's
but I
just
can
like
say that because I have no
is-
control over it.
Yeah, but
It's like if you hope there's a crazy thunderstorm because thunderstorms are awesome, it's not your fault if the thunderstorm's a little too crazy and people die.
the worst thing is like a lot of the stuff that's happening in Iraq and stuff like that. You could see it coming from a long time ago.
Oh, you mean like when we invaded Iraq?
Yeah, exactly. Like, this is a decades building problem, and it's like you see it start and you can't do anything about it, but you're like, oh, if only people had known then what we know now.
But they did know what we know now.
They did, and people said it over and over again,
just
but it
gave
didn't
zero
make any
fucks.
difference. Yeah. So, yeah, basically Rim and I, when we read the news or we're mad about this stuff, I'll come home and we'll like bitch at each other like, oh, the news, it is so unhappy. And Scott's like, why are you guys talking about this?
Yeah, of
So
course,
it doesn't
lately
even matter.
he's mad that I even talk about Sailor Moon Crystal. He's like, why would you talk about it? That anime's terrible.
Scott
Which
doesn't
he's
want
correct, but
Scott doesn't understand the catharsis in like complaining about things you don't like.
should we just do the whole show talking about Scott?
Impotent complaining. But no, because we got other stuff to talk about. We're going to
So,
go.
in personal news, way back when we moved out of Beacon and moved up to New York City, we had a change jar that was it was pretty much full at that point
the
already.
change jar.
So while we were moving,
My job.
our unbonded, dodgy Georgian movers,
They were
saw the
awesome.
change jar and they were like, "We give you $300 for it."
So instead,
Is worth 300? 400? They
and-
were trying to guess.
yeah, they were
And
trying to like, it's, you know, those things at the county fair where they're like, guess how many kernels of popcorn are in this jar, and then you get a prize if you guess right. They were basically trying to gamble on the fact that they were guessing, like lowballing this change jar.
Now, I guessed, and I'm really proud of myself, that this jar had about $650 in it of change.
It was $643, not counting the random singles, the paper singles that you threw in
And the
there.
colones.
and the colones and the Namco tokens, which always got sorted into the quarter. So basically, for years, this thing has been full, and we've been putting our change in the money hat.
into a top hat, like
Yeah.
a fake top hat.
So we've just had this thing, and it's too heavy for me to carry. This enormous pretzel jar. And
The free penny arcade came and went in the era when we had this change jar.
yeah, and so the bad thing is there's not a lot of Coinstars in the area. And so every time, and we don't have a car. or
And
anything.
Coinstar, I've read more and more, seems to be pretty inaccurate and shitty. And they take a cut unless you do the Amazon thing, which isn't always available.
It's not
so
always available.
Not excited about Coinstar.
So I was like, you know, we'd have a car, like we'd rent a zip car or something and be like, hey, do you want to swing by the house and get the change jar? And Rim's always like, nah, let's
'Cause I don't
deal
give
with
a
that
fuck.
later.
I'm just like,
I'm
whatever.
but there's so much money in there. We need to unlock the potential of this change jar. And so finally I was like, fuck it. And I bought this cheapo hand-cranked money sorter.
the best rated one on Amazon.
And so last weekend, in order to procrastinate on my writing, I just sorted all the change in the apartment into little rolls.
What's interesting is that there were basically no quarters near the top because we'd been
Yeah,
mining them
we
out for
just
laundry.
like
But as
laundry
you go
money.
deep into the layers, like different years, like quarters start to appear. Because back then, I had no use for quarters.
Apartment dwellers, they've got to understand like quarters reporters are the most valuable of all chains.
Seriously, I
'Cause-
still, to this day, really don't like doing laundry in laundromats.
Yeah,
I have always
I
really
would
hated
think-
it because I don't trust the personal hygiene or ability to use washers and dryers of pretty much anyone outside of my close circle of friends.
Yeah, I dislike that you're kind of tied to the place. Like you're like, okay, in exactly 23 minutes, I need to go down. Otherwise, somebody will take my stuff out. and
I just
dump
don't trust that someone's not going to put like some stinky shit in there.
Yeah, well, sometimes they smell like diapers.
Yeah.
So it's like, then you're always like, did they just wash cloth diapers right before I went? Oh, no.
Also, that
you
girl
know?
who started a fire because I
Oh
guess she
my
put like a
God,
plastic
and it was
bag in there.
Seriously, I have said it once. I'll say it a million times. If you reach the age of 18 and go to college or something without knowing how to do basic stuff,
I think
like
at that
wash
point
your
they just
own
have to put you down.
clothes- No, seriously,
Like Old Yeller,
you need
they just
to
take
go
you out
to.
back. They're like, sorry, she never learned how to do laundry.
I just think you don't graduate
Think
high
about the
school.
rabbits. Think about the rabbits.
Oh. Anyway, but it's like, you should have to, should be a requirement for
They
graduating
should
high
lock
school.
you in prison and you only get out if you successfully do laundry.
Or cook an egg without setting off the fire detector
Oh my
or
God.
something.
I remember an unnamed person we knew at RIT tried to cook instead of the fire
Popcorn.
alarm, and I was like, not the popcorn thing. That was a different gentleman who got
Oh my
expelled
God.
for that. But I after this happens, I was like, what the fuck did you do? And I'm like, show me how you cooked that. And I watch him cook it, and
You're
I don't
like, incorrect.
don't think he realized that knob above the stove turned on the grease fan or what a grease fan was.
Oh no.
The apartment was a cloud of grease, and I still don't know how we started the fire the previous time.
Grease?
But what sparked it? What started it? Because it was grease in the air. Aerosolized
Aerosolized grease,
doesn't catch
yeah.
fire that quickly. I think he must have dropped the egg into the... I don't even know.
Let's just pretend this never happened. You
So
just
in the
walk
news, I think it is worth talking about a little bit. If you haven't been paying attention to Twitter, which is pretty much the only place you can pay attention to this on, because the regular news...
out. You almost said mainstream news and then you caught yourself because that's a buzzword, isn't it?
Yeah,
That's what was going on.
the lamestream media.
But
They
yeah.
covered it really superficially, but basically, there have been multiple days of riots and police issues in Ferguson in the former Confederacy.
But it's
which
not
is what I refer to all southern states as.
It's not just riots. Some of it has been like organized protests, and some of it has been, there was times of like, a bunch of shops got
Well, I mean, regardless
busted
of
up
what
and-
sparked it, there was a protest the first night, and then that devolved by some individuals into riot looting and burning down of at least one business.
Yeah, it's pretty
But-
rough.
Basically, this whole story is important to pay attention to, partially as for you kids out there, you nerds, because this is another example of one of those things where social media is way faster and really is the only direct source of news. But at the same time, if you actually just follow the tags or Twitter in the location as opposed to, I don't know, having some sense and reading filters, I mean, people were reporting like real tanks rolling in and martial
people-
law
people who
and
live
snipers
there.
shooting people in the street and all
That's-
this stuff that didn't happen.
That's it. That's crazy. It's just the people who live there are being like, this is the crazy shit that's happening to us right now. This is horrible. And so I think that's the important thing. You're able to interface with people who are directly involved in these situations. I remember the first time it really hit home for me was during that the protests in Iran, like a number of years ago. It was like 4 years ago or something, during that uprising after the election. And it was, you just see tweets of like random students who are my age who are just like, here's what's happening, everybody gather here. And they tweet in English often because that would get people in the Western world aware of the situation. But this is a case where you just see photographs of like people's Instagram, and it's like, look, it's on fire, or look, this SWAT team has a rifle pointed at my friend,
Yep.
And I think that kind of visibility is one of the most important things for these situations, because I think like,
Well, what's happening now is
Yeah.
not different from what has happened countless times in many towns. The only difference is that now people are seeing actual photos of what it looks like when the police act that way.
yeah.
And maybe society has realized they don't have much of a stomach for it. Though, interestingly, a lot of the more conservative types seem to be pretty much cheering on the police because those people are lawless.
Well, I think it's one of those things where people in the United States can sometimes get very complacent about the really rather shitty state of our race relations here. And so it's like incidents like what happened in Ferguson really brings to the forefront that, yes, as a society, we have these issues that are still running beneath the whole surface of our culture, and they need to be addressed, you know?
Well, they're caused by such long-term systemic issues. I mean, It's a town that was primarily white and middle class
segregated,
that
though.
over decades became predominantly black, but yet the vast majority of the police force, all elected offices, and basically all civil service are white and people who either live on the outskirts of town or live in neighboring towns or suburbs, which is a lot like Detroit. I mean, I remember when I was a kid, my dad and every fireman he knew, there were laws that said if you were a fireman, you had to live inside of the city limits of Detroit because they were trying to have people in the neighborhoods have these jobs. Pretty much no firemen lived in Detroit.
They all cheated. They had like one apartment that everybody would share, and that was their mailing address.
One bedroom house has like 19 firemen living in it, and everyone was okay with that because that's how it rolled. So he would like occasionally spend the night there and leave some stuff there, and it was the same situation exactly. But you can read the news for all this stuff. If you're learning about this now from us on Geeknights, what the fuck, kid?
Go look at the internet for.
Things to look at. One, why do the police in these dumpy little towns
have
crazy
extremely
high-tech assault rifles?
Tanks.
I can see, but
why do they have tanks?
Like all this riot gear and all this crazy crap, and the answer is mostly military surplus and programs after 9/11 to distribute anti-terror stuff. So a whole bunch of pork and BS. Pay attention to how that happened.
Yeah.
And two, on the journalism thing, it amazes me that the people who are doing this, like the police and the town and everyone involved, are so slow to respond to social media that basically their side of the story isn't even appearing except as told by like normal news the next day. Like, it amazes me that the mayor wasn't reacting or the governor wasn't reacting like immediately.
Maybe they're worried that like they're trying to gauge their PR stuff. You know?
But the silence is worse.
I know, because the silence looks bad. Like, ooh, how are we gonna spin this sort of deal? But yeah, that's what I assume. It's like they're worried they're gonna fuck up or that they have fucked up major big time, and so
now you fucked up.
Yeah,
now you fucked up.
Seriously. But I'm guessing that's why they haven't been on. It's not that they're unable to interface with
I think they
social
are
media.
unable to interface because they don't seem to realize how the things they're doing look. Like, they tear down the Al Jazeera's camera equipment after scaring them off and shooting at them. Like, they didn't realize that other people would video that.
Yeah.
Like, that was the only camera they saw, and they just went and took it out.
This is why police officers need the cameras on them. Because
that's the other thing.
People gonna videotape the police officers anyway. So you figure, like, why not just be proactive about it and equip every police officer with, like, mandatory surveillance things?
We've had this technology for, like, a decade. It's just that police really resist this.
Because they don't want to get caught doing something jerky, because often they act jerky. And so, but it could protect them as well. So if somebody assaults a police officer, then you have evidence.
Well, thus the final trouble. Part of the reason why this situation keeps getting violent is even if the police don't do what they've been doing, it's possible that a lot of people will continue to instigate anyway because it's really easy to destabilize and really hard to build something new. And there's almost no way for this situation to not have pretty much terrible optics because in the end, there's no way to know what happened. There's no video. There's eyewitness testimony, which is extremely unreliable, as we've talked about before on Geeknights. It's basically a cop's word against a dead kid's word and people in the neighborhood who saw part of, but maybe not all of, the supposed confrontation. There's probably not going to be any closure or resolution to this at all. Like, there's nothing we can do that will end it or say, the cop was charged with murder and found guilty. If the cop's charged with anything, he'll probably get off of it. The best case you can look for is maybe the cop will be found guilty of something and just fired.
Yeah.
There's also the situation where Anonymous announced the name of the cop.
I wish they would stop doing that. Like, I feel...
Well, we don't know if that was the name of the cop or not. The police won't respond.
But here's the thing. They've done it before. Like, remember when people were trying to dox the Boston bombers and then a ton of people, like a mob, showed up at this poor kid's door who had absolutely nothing to do with the situation?
Yep.
It was like...
Of course, in this case, what if they got the right guy? Like, what if they got the right guy?
Still, I feel like even if he's a shitty person, even if he shot the kid in cold blood or something like that, he's terrible, right? But I feel like ideally he should be tried in a court of law, and nobody should have this sort of vigilante justice, like try to get him before he gets out of town or something like that.
But society has to deal with the fact that, I mean, Anonymous is just anyone who wants to do anything.
Yeah.
And that kind of information really can't be hidden.
Yeah, people are going to want to try
Like, the cop's name's going to come out at some point.
So we're going to have to deal with the fact that, I've thought about this a lot. Like, I'm always worried that I'm going to piss off the internet somehow. Like,
I kind of want to, but I'm a different kind of person.
You're a lot less anxious than I am. But, like, I live in fear of being, like, the next Anita Sarkeesian. Because
what
I
if
don't
Scott
know
and I
how
said so many times,
that.
bring on the hate? Like, we haven't gotten any quality hate mail or death threats in a long time.
But, like, have you ever gotten death threats?
You could construe some things that people have said to me as death threats.
Oh, that's kind of worrying.
But that was back like 2006, 2007 when podcasts were bigger. And it was mostly when we'd do things that got like high profile on sites other than our own.
Yeah. But I'm always like really scared that like, oh, well, I'm very public with my persona. And so I kind of like throw myself out there. People know my real name, my real address. It's always weird to think that back in the day, it used to be like, we were supposed to hide behind pseudonyms on the internet. Maybe it was partly because I was a teenager, but I remember back in the 90s and stuff, like nobody told their real name online. And now it's basically with social media, everybody they brand themselves as a persona.
Yep. Yeah. Well, because people want credit for all the stuff they do.
Exactly. And they share their real day-to-day life. Like,
that's true.
I went
back
here,
in the old days,
I went there.
I was Origins on the internet. That was one of my earliest first handles.
Yeah. So it's interesting. I feel like the net used to be a lot more anonymous before we were like, oh, this is who I am and look at all my stuff. So it's good in some ways, bad in some ways. But anyway, I'm always scared that there's going to be someone outside my door just being like, I am going to stab her for the things she said about video games. Like, no.
Luckily, the kinds of people who say those things in the context of video games, probably too fat to catch you.
I run very fast.
So it's Thursday. Scott hates that I call Thursday the lounge.
The lounge. We will lounge about.
So it's the lounge. What are we going to talk about in the lounge? What is your topic?
My topic?
Or news or whatever it might be.
My thing of the day?
No, news.
No, my news.
We're not at things of the day
yet.
yet.
I thought we had talked about the news that like
you didn't bring a news to the table.
I don't know.
You don't have to. We can just go right on. I hear that bumper coming in. So anyway, things of the day. I do find it amusing that the tune you just hummed was the original Geeknights theme.
I know, I'm bringing it
Do you know
back.
what that came from?
Probably a Family Guy thing.
Yeah, it was a Family Guy thing.
Usually when there's an inside joke that I think... Yeah, it's weird. It's like usually when there's a thing that I think... Stop it. Stop it.
That was the original Geeknights theme. If you listeners don't remember that, you've never listened to the beginning of Geeknights.
Yep, the first lost episodes.
Oh, God, the first 3 months of the show.
Yeah, basically. Before you got the OC remixes all up ins. But
thank you, DJ Pretzel.
Yeah, it was one of those things where it's like, you guys make all these inside jokes, and I think they're just like weird things that you made up, and then you're like, oh, it's from Family Guy. I'm like, shit.
It's not always Family Guy. Sometimes it's Tommy Boy.
I hate both of those things. So.
But you got to admit, whenever I show you one of the clips that we got something from, they're always funny.
It's like 50-50. Sometimes I'm just like, it makes me mad. It's so
the one in the forum today about how pizza restaurants can't make salad.
That was true, though.
Yeah.
And see, making fun of a pizza restaurant, that's the thing. It's like Family Guy punches down. That's what I don't like about it.
It usually punches across.
Well,
and poop and vomit.
Well, I feel like
a lot of vomit and poop.
His whole thing is that like, oh, I'm going to be edgy and have offensive humor, so I'm going to make fun of this disabled person, or I'm going to make fun of this race or something like that. And the assumption is that because he makes fun of everybody equally, then, you know, you can't blame him. But I'm like, yeah, it still makes me kind of annoyed when there's that kind of crude, slightly
Of course, his main character and
questionable
anti-hero
humor.
is a like middle-class white dude who's
Yeah, well, I don't like the characters either. Of course, I like Brian.
he's
Okay.
actually kind of a dickbag
He
if you
is a
watch the
dick
show.
bag, but like the episode when he and Stewie go on the road trip,
They still
that
do
was
those
actually
episodes.
cute. But yeah, I mean, like it has its moments, but overall, it's not a show I really seek out.
But anyway, things of the day. I have for you some trading cards from 1902. And these
Oh.
trading cards are the women of the future.
Oh, dude.
Well, the sexy women of the future. They're pinups, and they're like, it's women dressed as sort of stereotypes of male roles.
So it's
and
like soldiers.
it's
and stuff
lampooning like
that?
this is what women will be in the future. They'll be judges and reporters and things.
but sexy. It's
I
like
gotta say-
Halloween or something back in the 1920s.
I gotta say, I want these styles in these pinups to become real styles that people wear.
We could. You
Look at
know
that
what
duck
would be
head.
funny?
That duck head
You
is
know what would be
great.
cool? You know how Halloween, we always lampoon Halloween for being like, oh yeah, it's so lame. Adults just have sexy versions of every costume.
Should we all dress up as this?
Yes, we should do the sexy versions of like Judge and stuff like that. But the 1910
You know, when you said
style of
sexy
it.
versions of Judge, all I can think of is the anime Judge.
or Judge.
Have you ever
Doom or
seen
something.
Judge?
No, I didn't.
I
did not.
Judge is one of those shows that was sitting in
The Blockbuster,
it was
right?
sitting in Blockbuster right next,
Next
to
to
Doom
Harmageddon.
Megalopolis and Armageddon. From the
Yeah.
director of Burn Up W.
That looks pretty cool. I'm looking over my shoulder. Those are some good pinups. I like that. I always like, you know, it's kind of one of those retro futurism things, but I always like what the past thought the future would be. There was like those French postcards that I saw a few months ago where it was like, you know, a bunch of women sitting around talking on their video phones, and basically they had like, you know, a very, very retro looking version. Like imagine an iPhone crossed with a gramophone, and you have what this postcard was portraying. And it was like communication in the future. And I was like, oddly prescient.
I think the cutest girl is the soldier girl with the billet de logement.
Oh,
Logement.
are these French too? French futurism?
Well, they're all French.
French
Women.
postcards.
It's the women of the future from France.
oh, the
The
one has
femme de
a,
l'avenir.
it has a Napoleon looking hat.
So you have a thing of the day?
I do indeed. My thing of the day is an article on Cartoon Brew. Rim and I are actually, we got tickets to an advanced screening of the Box Trolls next Tuesday. And so that's one of the perks of dating an animator is we can get you into all these free pre-screenings and stuff like that. And so I'm actually looking forward to it because there's going to be a director Q&A. So anyway, this article is how Leica used 3D printing to do all the facial expressions in the Box Trolls. And in case you didn't know, you know Coraline and Paranorman and stuff, they are the studio behind those features. And one of the things that they're notable for is being some of the pioneers of stop motion in an era where most animated features are 3D, you know, that are done all digitally. And the cool thing about one of Leica's processes is instead of like sculpting each head from scratch individually, they actually model it in 3D inside the computer and then use rapid prototyping to make all these different facial expressions for the puppets. And so anyway, I'm looking forward to the film. Their work is always great, and this is actually kind of a cool look into their process. So I hope you enjoy it.
All right. In the meta moment, the book club book is still A Canticle for Leibowitz. I suspect Scott won't read it until it's winter. We're going to be at PAX, Prime, and Dev.
Oh yeah, Rim and I are going to Dev.
So come say hi to us at Dev. I'll be there representing Date Nighto and HTML, VN, visual novels rather than Geeknights.
yeah, because you finally are in the game industry as a producer.
I'm a legitimate gamesman at this point. We're also going to be at PAX Prime doing on Monday in the Sandworm Theater at noon, How to Win Every Game. This might be our most deeply thought out and well put together panel, or I guess lecture, ever.
You're actually getting it done way ahead of time.
It's
and
been
putting
done
lot
for
of
a long
polish
time.
in it.
We practiced it at Kineticon. Pretty pumped about it. Might also run it without Scott at Australia because I, not Emily and not Scott, am going to PAX Aus in October.
I wish I could go. Like when you guys went to Australia, I was like, oh, I wish I could go. I have no vacation. Goodbye.
Yeah. Well, it's
What you
mostly,
gonna do?
I work in an industry where I can pretty much just take any vacation time I want.
Well, this was cool because it was like half work, half play.
Yeah,
so
I'm going to a far more boring convention in Sydney about a week before PAX Aus. So I'm going to 2 conventions, one of which is fun and one of which is the Fixed Protocol.
You lucky guy, all your
Yeah.
business travel, going to Paris.
At this
and
point, I'm
London.
kind of one of the
Jet
foremost
setter.
experts in the world on the Fixed Protocol.
Jet setter.
I should do a lecture on that at
Fancy
like a
parties.
Kineticon.
Actually, you should do a on the fixed protocol or
On the Fixed Protocol, I should be
globe-trotting.
like, so you want to work in the financials.
They give you lots of fancy wine and they pay you really well, or you could make video games and work way overtime.
A third the money and 160%
Passion,
the
Rim.
hours.
Passion.
Gerald
we have
Passion?
passion. Wait, is that the Gecky guy kind of passion?
That's passion.
Oh no.
So I've been watching The Daily Show pretty much since it started. Like I literally, when the first episode was announced, like I knew the show was coming because I was a fan of like Liz Winstead and I knew she was like doing this thing. So I
Yeah.
figured I'd follow it. Kind of knew who Craig Kilborn was because I watched a lot of like weird talk shows and things and I'd seen him on SportsCenter or whatever. So I was excited and I watched The Daily Show and it was awesome.
So what year did it start
like
about?
1996?
Yeah, that's a long
It was
time ago.
95 or 96. I can't exactly remember when. It started in 96. I think it was announced in 1995 that it was coming.
So you must have been like middle school or something.
That was high school.
High school,
High school.
yeah.
96 was high school. I was a freshman in high school.
Yeah.
And I remember like 3 years later when Craig Kilborn left,
You were like,
I-
oh, it's done.
I had
It's
never heard of
goodbye.
Jon Stewart. I looked him up and was not particularly impressed.
Yeah, it's a
and Craig
busboy.
Kilborn was the funniest guy I'd ever seen on a talk show. So I couldn't imagine, like I figured the show was just going to be awful. And then I heard that like he took 5 questions with him. So I wouldn't like they were going to change the show.
Change the format around.
And I remember I watched the first episode with Jon Stewart and suddenly Craig Kilborn was dead to me.
yeah.
He was a hack. He was never funny. And as far as I can tell, he hasn't done much.
Thing is, Jon Stewart, see, I only started watching the show maybe around 2005 or so because I started watching it. I'd never had a TV growing up. And then I roomed with a girl who was really into television. I mean, that's what she was going into is, film and
Wow,
television.
I watched a decade
So-
more of The Daily
I
Show
know,
than
that's
you.
crazy.
A
But like,
decade!
but it's like I started watching the show when Jon Stewart was already like firmly entrenched as like the longtime host of The Daily Show. But even then, it's weird to see like clips from
Dude,
when
I think
I started
you started
watching
The Daily Show after Colbert had left.
No, I remember him as a correspondent.
Yeah, but the Colbert Report started in like 2005 or 2006.
No, it didn't. It started
2005. I just looked it up. Yeah.
But I do remember when it started. I remember when they were like, because Macy and I were like, oh, they're gonna have an extra show, and so. But I started watching it like maybe the year before then, perhaps. I can't remember. Anyway, it was great, and I actually remember that was kind of a tradition with us. It's like we'd kind of take a break from studying around 11 o'clock and watch The Daily Show every night. So.
Yep, and that's still what we do. Like that's the one thing that because I can't watch a good anime while we're eating because I got to pay attention to it.
Yeah,
And I can't watch anime while I'm just fucking around like mopping or anything.
I think anything
because I can't
that-
understand Japanese.
Yeah, that's the thing is,
And the
like,
dubs are
even,
terrible.
even without, because I don't really need subtitles as much as Rim does, but it's like I really want to pay attention if something's visually engaging. But like a talk show or a news program or something like that, it's like you don't have to have your eyes on the screen every second in order to really get the full enjoyment and experience out of it. I mean, you're more the type who will do stuff while the television's on. I have trouble multitasking when there's a TV, like when TV is happening in a space that I'm in. So, but like, yeah, it's Daily Show. It's like I can eat and watch the Daily Show, but I have a hard time eating and watching like, a really intense film or something like that.
Yep. But as much as I like The Daily Show, it is still just, it's more funny than it is deeply informative.
Sometimes though, he will go on a crusade and he will pick out certain issues that he really wants to highlight, like the whole thing about the first responders, cancer, and stuff like that. Jon Stewart is actually pretty civic-minded.
Yep. Well, I guess as a result, what I both like about the show and what bothers me about the show is that because it's so easy to point out just like individual hypocrisy and just this ridiculous bullshit, the fact that there really aren't that many people doing it and that a comedy show is honestly a better look at the news than most real television news.
Yeah, I feel kind of guilty saying this, but there have been things like, especially when I get really busy and then I take a break to watch The Daily Show, there will be some times when I'll find out about recent news from The Daily Show.
At a lot of adults I know had no idea anything had happened in Ferguson,
That's weird.
Missouri.
I can't imagine that. It's like
they had no idea that anything had gone on.
Yeah, but I get a lot of stuff. People mention stuff on Twitter. I'll go to Google News, but like when I'm really busy, I won't be constantly seeking out news on the internet.
Well, I guess I spend a good 45 minutes of every morning reading the news, drinking coffee.
Yeah, that's true.
It's been my thing.
I go into work and it's like, time to work, So anyway, but that aside, one thing that I think is big in the format of The Daily Show is, like you said, he focuses, especially now, a lot more on the media's portrayal of the news. That's a big thing. It's like a show that looks at other shows. Like he does a lot of stuff with Fox, like Bullshit Mountain, and he'll like contrast clips of politicians or news anchors speaking in direct opposition to something that they'd said like 12 months earlier during a primary. And so I think that's a big shtick that The Daily Show has that kind of sets it apart from, like, Colbert's shtick is he's parodying the right-wing anchors at Fox. He's like the conservative, but really overblown and fear-mongering kind of thing. So Jon Stewart is like media criticism.
Admit, I never found the Colbert Report funny. Like, the concept was funny. I watched it once. I was like, that's a really good take on that. And then I had no interest never watching it again.
I like Colbert okay, but I like Stewart has a little bit more, because he's not as much playing a character. I mean, he still is, and he's still kind of broad in his humor sometimes, but it's like, it feels more sincere. It's like a more direct take on it. So, I don't know. Colbert, I have a lot of friends who love Colbert, but he's like kind of secondary.
And I'm talking directly at you friends. I don't think Colbert's that funny.
But what you gonna do? He's going to be a regular talk show host now. So.
Yeah, I suspect they're going to ruin that.
Oh, I don't know. He's probably going to do
the only reason John Oliver gets away with what he gets away with is because HBO has given him a whole ton of rope.
So let's talk about that. It's basically HBO's version of The Daily Show.
I like the fact that this kind of news satire is becoming a genre and that it's so popular among young people, or at least internet-y young people.
Well, that's it. It's like HBO probably looked at the popularity of The Daily Show and said, we need that. And so they got John Oliver, who was a former Daily Show correspondent, and gave him his own show. And so in a way, it was kind of like Colbert in that it was almost a spin-off, but it's owned by a completely different channel. So,
but without having commercials,
commercials,
and he can say fuck
and show penises, which happened
both
in
of those
a
things
number of instances.
I'm going to admit that I like John Oliver's show already more than I like The Daily Show, ever.
So I think there's a slightly different kind of humor.
I don't think it's not news satire. It's just news, and it's funny in the way that, like, someone explaining to you that you've got cancer could be funny in the way they did it.
No, it's definitely still comedy. But it's not like parodying anything as much. He's still being very comedic, and like his humor tends to be a little bit more pointed and a little bit darker. People say,
I'm not a fan of
British.
Dark and pointed humor.
It's like people
night
say
arrows
because
are perhaps
he's
the
British,
funniest thing in the world to me.
But that's kind of night arrows because it's dark and pointed. Lols. But no, people are saying, it's British humor, but I think it's just more that he tends to be a little bit more like you laugh at something, but you're kind of like, ow, ooh. ow.
Too real, too real.
Too real.
Too soon
much.
and too real.
Yeah. So
It's like he's listened to Geeknights
I
for our entire run, and one by one, he is focusing on everything I've ever been pissed off about.
That's the thing that amazed me about that show is how consistently it's addressed the things that have concerned you and I. Like the things that we're mad about, and like I was saying, we come home and gripe about things we can't change.
Like, you guys don't understand how mad I am about the prison industrial complex.
It's like we'll get on these topics and just be like, prisons or fake medicine, why isn't it regulated? And, so weird random stuff, technology issues like net neutrality. These are the things that we're like kind of activists about, that we care about and talk about. And, they're not addressed as much in a lot of the political discourse, I guess. And the fact that every week with his show, he's picked something, he's picked a topic that's actually we care a lot about, and just completely done this hilarious and chilling at the same time expose into that topic. Like, let's see, what are some of the examples?
Net neutrality, global warming, fake medicine, immigration reform.
Yeah, he did that, and I think one of my favorite episodes was the one about gay rights, where he talked to that activist in which country was it?
Oh, that was in Uganda.
Uganda, yeah, that passed the really nasty anti-gay bill. And he
not the nastiest in that region, though, to be fair.
Yeah, but it was far more draconian than it ever had been. And so if somebody was, just acknowledged that they were gay, they faced huge jail terms and incredible abuse. And so, I mean, it was wonderful. He had this this activist on the program, and he talked about this fight that was going on, and so. He doesn't do interviews every time. That's another major difference from The Daily Show, is that he'll get people on if they're relevant to the issue, but he doesn't always. And he definitely takes advantage of the bigger budget,
Yeah, well, they're definitely trying to make an impression with this first season. I have a feeling the budget will scale back in future seasons.
But they'll do these incredibly elaborate throwaway gags.
Well, also, though, by not being tied to this very tight, specific format that The Daily Show has followed for pretty much the entirety of its run.
Yeah, it's a little bit more loose.
Sometimes he'll talk for a long time about one thing.
Yeah.
Sometimes they'll do a funny bit between two things. Sometimes they just won't.
Well, because there's no commercials, they do those mini... they're basically like montages, like
and now,
politicians.
this.
Yeah, and now politicians saying something incredibly racist or something.
I wasn't just
like
lampooning
that.
The Daily Show. I was also lampooning us. Geeknights has stuck to the same format without altering it ever since 2005.
Well, that's not true. Like when I'm on, we alter it a little bit.
We have followed the
Guests and
Geeknights
stuff
format
like that.
to the T.
We have. Well,
Yes.
I didn't have a news. But
Our
what you gonna
format,
do?
if you want to talk jargon styles, we have an opening bit, like an opening stinger that's meta, but isn't meta to the show, it's meta to our lives. It's usually an anecdote or something. It's like the second half of a conversation, because that's the kind of thing that's popular on those morning talk show type of things.
Yeah.
Then we do the news segment. Then we have the bumper. Then we do two things of the day, a brief meta moment, which was added in 2009.
moment.
Then we do the main bit. And then occasionally there'll be a stinger at the end after the closing theme.
Yeah.
Really haven't deviated from that unless we do an interview show, which is we just interview someone for an hour.
Yeah. When you have someone like Conrad on,
In fact,
you
when
still
we got-
follow the format, but you have a little bit more of a free-form conversation during the main bit of the show.
Well, when we got guests on the show, when we had guest hosts as opposed to just guests on the show, we actually made them follow our format exactly. So Fast Karate for the Geeknights, I remember...
That was good. I remember
because I
when Dave
remember
and
they were
Joel
like,
did that.
so I guess we got to talk about our day for the first bit. Huh.
We got to talk about biking, but I guess that was in the pre-biking era.
They was obviously reading the cue sheet I gave him while they were doing the show.
Yeah. Man, if we had done standard Geek Nights, it would have been me talking about the bike crackdown and being like, like, oh, and so biking today.
Oh, actually, I avoided getting a ticket today
Did
by
you see
running
a
away from the
police
police.
What?
So I was biking up Franklin
Man, we
Avenue.
should have done this during the meta, or not the meta moment, the
opening
bit.
I was biking up Franklin Avenue.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of slow fucking fixies around me.
And
So lights red, no traffic because there's
you
never any
ran the
traffic there.
light like you do.
So I ran the light in this cluster of slow fixies.
Utah stop.
So, well, I didn't do the Utah stop because there was a light and I didn't even stop. Because the Utah stop is you stop signs, everything gets downgraded one.
Yeah, like
so a stop sign becomes a yield and a red light becomes a stop sign. But I just rolled through it with everybody else, going slow because they're fixies.
Yeah.
And I see up ahead, just because I'm aware, a police van that is obviously poised for intervention.
Parked
and I
in the
knew
bike
it was bike
lane?
week. So what I did is I blew through the red light and immediately popped onto the curb and got off my bike right there. Like right on the curb.
Okay.
And I leaned my bike against the wall like I was going to tie it up and do a thing. Like that's where my destination was.
Yeah.
And then I see the cop van kind of pull out, get in front of the bikers, and then like slow down and get them all to stop. And then cops
they
jump
rounded them
out
up.
to write them tickets. And then I see one of the cops looking over at me, like looking directly at me. And they know that I ran the light and stopped right there. And I see them like right into things, and they're looking at me like they're waiting for me to continue.
Should we go after him?
So I stand there looking at my phone, and I see like the cops stay out and they're processing all these fucking fixies, and then the van like drives up a little bit and then turns right. And I know it's turned right down the road that I would have to take if I wanted to go to the bridge because there's nowhere else to bike over there. So I get on my bike and I take a different route, and I go up a block and I go over and I kind of look and I see,
You see
in the distance,
van.
it is parked right where I would have gone. Like it's waiting for me.
It was a good thing it wasn't like at the actual entrance to the Williamsburg.
Yeah, it was on the other side. It was by the Pulaski.
Tomorrow.
Yeah. Well, if they recognize me tomorrow and they listen to Geeknights, this is just parody.
Hello.
This is new satire.
We
None of that
are
happened.
making stuff up because we had to have a bike-related anecdote.
Yeah, just like I've never smoked marijuana and I'm not drinking beer right now. Well, I guess beer's not illegal.
Beer's not illegal. What is this, prohibition?
I've ridden my bike home drunk, though.
Yeah. Yeah, only a few times.
But the gist of all this is that I'm really excited that Last Week Tonight is doing well because I think as a new way to manufacture outrage among the people who matter about things that matter, this is possibly the most efficient machine I've seen.
Well, the cool thing about it, too, is that he, specifically on a lot of topics, he'll do things to actively get people involved. Like he'll say, oh, this is why this sucks, like with the net neutrality. Here is an address you can write to. And so he basically leverages his media presence to like point his laser directly at like a certain politician who is really bad on technological issues.
Yep.
So I like that aspect.
Well, that's
of
it.
Yeah.
It's not just the Daily Show to say, look at this fucker.
Respect his privacy. Respect his privacy.
But this show, every episode is not just a, hey, look at these fuckers. It's also a call to action.
Exactly. He's like, what can you do about this? I mean, it's like all minor things. It's not like, oh, take to the streets kind of thing. But he does give you something you can do.
I'm waiting for the episode
involved.
where he says, now everyone, reach under your seat. You will find a gun.
It's like some sort of Manchurian candidate like trigger where...
Well, it's the same reason why if there's ever a disaster, like the crowd thing where people just don't react to it and someone needs to take charge and say, you do CPR, you call 911, you go do this. Because if you don't do that, people just stand there doing nothing.
Yeah.
It's the same
You're
thing.
You're good at that. Like whenever there's something goes down or like if people are being indecisive even, you're kind of like, okay, now it's leadership time, and you'll like step up.
Though
and
I'm
be
a jerk,
like,
because occasionally, especially when it's something minor.
Sometimes you'll be like, I don't want to deal with it, and just go up by yourself.
When it's something minor, like a bunch of people are over and they're demurring about what to eat for dinner, sometimes if I have no horse in this race, I'll just lean back and let it happen and watch the clusterfuck slowly approach and not do anything because it's hilarious and fuck everybody.
Yeah, but there are times when you'll be like, follow me. So I'm kind of lucky in that, like, if everything goes to shit and society collapses,
I'll start
and
a
we're all
cult,
living
and the
in
cult will
Mad
take care of
Max,
us.
yeah, you'll be.
I'll form the city
the
of Southern
crazy-
Cross, and everything will be awesome in Southern Cross for us.
Yeah. So anyway.
Well, the problem with that is that I'm not 9 feet tall.
Yeah, I was going to say, you're going to have some guy and you'll be like, I have all the power because people listen to me. And then some 9-foot guy with a purple mohawk is going to come and pile drive you into the ground. That's what's going to happen.
There are a few bad guys in Fist of the North Star who are relatively small and have larger people
I don't
who
know,
work for them.
though. That whole
Who
show...
run Bartertown?
That kind of show seems to rely mostly on brawn and physical strength. You don't see the little guy go up to Kenshiro and go, He doesn't do the psychological manipulation. Like, even the people who do are typically also 9 feet tall. So... You are shocked.
So I hope this show keeps up with what it's doing right now. I hope that more shows like this start appearing.
Yeah.
And I hope that it starts... I think it's a good meme generator to spread memes that actually lead to some sort of action or voting.
It's interesting. It's like... I almost feel like there's a difference between like the old, new, left, right kind of propaganda in a way. Because like... if this is our propaganda, it's all like, it tends to do a lot of stuff with humor, and it tends to like spread its memes through humor. Whereas,
And it's also just truth. It's like, we don't need to spin this. Here's video of this asshole saying something really racist.
You have to understand that that's still documentary. Like, people tend to treat documentaries like they're unbiased. But selective editing, it may be true, it may be an event that occurred, but it's still choosing which parts of that event to show you. So, like, you can't pretend it's not unbiased. I mean, it tends to be biased in a way that I agree with, so I'm, like, very much for it. But, you know, if that's our propaganda, it like, spreads its memes through humor, whereas the old propaganda spreads its memes through fear. You know, all the memes of Fox News are, like, fear-based memes. Like, immigrants, take our jobs, kind of thing.
Take our
jobs. Yeah, so anyway, I like it. I'm going to keep watching it and see how it goes.
This has been Geeknights with Rim and Scott. Special thanks to DJ Pretzel for the opening music, Kat Lee for web design, and Brando K for the logos.
Be sure to visit our website at frontrowcrew.com for show notes, discussion, news, and more.
Remember, Geeknights is not one, but 4 different shows. Sci-Tech Mondays, Gaming Tuesdays, Anime Comic Wednesdays, and Indiscriminate Thursdays.
Geeknights is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution 3.0 license. Geeknights is recorded live with no studio and no audience. But unlike those other late shows, it's actually recorded at night.